When Phillida came and said, I have a film that circles Margaret Thatcher's life and issues around a woman leader like that, I was already immediately, of course, interested, because there aren't very many women leaders. There aren't filmmakers who are interested in investigating what it meant to be a woman leader. And so I was really, really interested. One thing you really do come away with an appreciation with after playing a character of sort of Shakespearean proportions is you have, I feel very humble and daunted by the prospect of what she really took on her shoulders. It's an enormous, terrifying, devastating position to be consigning people to life or death, and then to put your head on the pillow at night. People think, there is no toll, and we do look at public figures as if they're monsters or gods, and the truth is everybody falls sort of in the middle. Margaret Thatcher really did break ground in that she showed a way that a woman could be a leader, and it was really interesting. She didn't have a problem with how to lead, and so in a way, men didn't have so much problem knowing how to follow. Well, I didn't come into the film with a political agenda about Margaret Thatcher. I honestly knew quite shockingly little about her policies. I knew that they were in line with many of President Reagan's policies, and with which I was more familiar. We were sort of more concerned with the toll that takes on a person, that kind of decision making. When you're the leader and the buck stops here, what does it do to you as a human? And how much stamina does it take, to stay strong? Jim Broadbent is so deeply funny, and I, as an actor, even in the most serious roles, he brings an antic quality in many of the things that I've seen him do. And it's a quality of tender kind of humanity that's just very touching. I was so glad when he agreed to come on board, because we owe him the heart and soul of the film, I feel. For me, as an actor, just walking into the first day of rehearsal was incredibly daunting, because there were all these wonderful British actors, and I think there were about 40 or 45 of them, and I was the only woman in the room, and I sort of had the feeling Margaret Thatcher must have had when she walked into the Conservative Party. All those gents were so great to me and welcoming in this territory where I really don't belong, as the interloper, the American. But in a way, I had courage to play Margaret Thatcher because she was an interloper in this, Oxbridge-Etonian Conservative Party into which she marched undaunted. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it. I have to hand it to Phillida, our director, Phillida Lloyd, who really made this happen in almost inexplicable ways. I don't know how she quite achieved it. I think her greatest qualities as a director, there sort of isn't a department in which she doesn't have absolutely the best attributes. She has great patience. She has great clarity of mind. She never veered from the film that we all had discussed years before making. She never veered from that vision during the course of the film. And often filmmaking is so weirdly visceral that you can start out to make a film and then it'll morph into something else, and you throw up your hands and say, well, it just got out of the barn, you know. It is something else. But that didn't happen with us. I think that this one will find an audience across the board, people, and also it will appeal to people who don't normally go to the movies because they've been shut out and bored by what's being offered. I think if the film succeeds, it succeeds because certain very pressurized and important and tension-filled moments of her political life have equal weight with moments in her personal life that also had great reverberation for her as a human being. The best part of making the picture was really the opportunity to look at a whole life. Because at this point in my life, you know, you do look back and you think about the whole history. Sometimes it's overwhelming how big a life can be, how crammed with events that seem momentous at the time. It was an interesting thing to follow a woman who grew up during the war and follow that through the post-war time in Britain and time of privation and rebuilding, and to see someone put together their own philosophy and put it into action, into practical solutions for what she saw as the deficits in her country's economic well-being.